Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is a horror movie review and I'll be having a look at the movie The Lost Episode, which is also known as Pennhurst. Now, by the look of this cover, you'll be forgiven for thinking it's kind of a found footage film in kind of the same long lines of sort of grave encounters and that kind of thing. And whilst I think it certainly is meant to look like it kind of resembles grave encounters, it's not a found footage film. However, there are a couple of shots where you kind of do see a point of view through the camera. However, it does have a kind of similar-ish setup. This film actually has kind of two sort of narratives that are running sort of concurrently. Basically, the main bulk of the story features a kind of camera crew, very much like Grave Encounters, going to film a kind of documentary or a kind of episode of the Most Haunted type TV show. In this particular Pennhurst mental asylum, which is has a dark past, as they always do. But you've also got a kind of a secondary sort of story, which is kind of a little bit more in the future, which is this bunch of kids going into this same asylum, but kind of telling this sort of story. And they kind of have I guess you would say maybe the main camera crew story is about 75% of the movie, and kind of these sort of kids going into this kind of like the same asylum, but in, I guess, some years later, is probably about 25% of the story. Now, the bulk of the story, as I say, features this kind of camera crew trying to film this sort of documentary. There's sort of 5 or 6 of them, and inevitably they kind of go in there and strange things start to happen. Ghostly apparitions appear, and they get separated. And not only are there ghosts, there's also actually a slasher film as well. So they're not only dealing with ghosts, there's actually a kind of slasher nicknamed Dr. Death in there, played by Michael Rooker, who is also the director of this movie. Now, if that name sounds familiar and you can't quite place it, Michael Rooker's been in lots and lots of different kind of like genre movies and TV shows. You probably know him best from The Walking Dead, where he played Mel. Ultimately, they kind of a lot of them get picked off one by one, and they kind of unravel the mystery about what happened in this sort of Pennhurst asylum. And then you kind of have these kind of flashes here and there, with this sort of secondary story of this kind of bunch of obnoxious teenagers as they kind of have a similar experience. So, what's the film like? Now, mercifully, it's actually quite a short film, and I have to say this is very, very poor filmmaking. Sorry, Michael Rooker. I liked you in Walking Dead and a variety of other your stuff, but as a director, I think maybe not so much. So, which is surprising because obviously he's a relatively experienced actor. It's obviously a low budget film. Now, the first thing I'll talk about is the kind of, as I mentioned, it has these sort of two sort of narratives. And the kind of the one with a bunch of kids feels and looks so different. It looks like it's just been added on as an afterthought to kind of pad out the running time, because the look of it, the kind of the sound editing, the lighting, it looks so different. It just looks like it's made as just to sort of pad the running time or whatever. But I'll come on to that again in just a second. The main story, as I say, it looks a little bit better. The production values are slightly better, but it's still an incredibly cheap movie. All the kind of the ghostly effects are more or less just kind of like video digital effects, and they look like it. And the acting, I have to say, is pretty much abysmal across the whole film. There's a couple of okay B-movie-ish performances, but the majority of the acting, particularly from the obnoxious kids sort of storyline, that's really terrible. And some of the adult storyline, I guess, aren't so good. But okay, there's a couple of okay ones there. But everything about this movie is just very cheap. Some shots are out of focus. The sound editing is bad. The story's very sort of predictable. There's nothing. I can't really have anything really too much to say that is positive, apart from it's that there's some pretty women in it. I'm kind of stretching now, and maybe there's a couple of the odd sort of good idea. Mixing a kind of slasher film with a kind of ghost story, I guess, is less common, shall we say. But there's if you like these kind of cheap horror films, like I said, it's not a found footage movie, although it kind of looks like it might be, but it really isn't. But it really is just a terrible. The music's crap. The music kind of fades into the sort of sound effects. You can't tell if it's meant to be music or sound effects, that sort of thing. Everything. There's nothing really very good about this at all. So I'm going to have to give this movie a 2 out of 10. And the kind of like the kiddie section, the kind of the teenager section, that was awful. That on its own is like a 0.5 out of 10. But overall, it's a movie, 2 out of 10. What did you think of it? Have you seen it? Let me know what your thoughts are. Leave me a comment. I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.